The unfaithful husband kissed his mistress right in front of his pregnant wife's funeral, but when the reverend from the church his wife attended handed him a folder with all the documents, they felt the blood freeze in their veins. "I believe we all wear masks," Tyler Johnson said, raising his crystal champagne flute. "But tonight, let's toast to those rare moments when we can let them slip." The crowd of Charleston's elite erupted in appreciative laughter as they raised their glasses in the grand ballroom of the Hanover estate. Crystal chandeliers cast golden light over women in designer gowns and men in tailored tuxedos. At 38, Tyler commanded the room with effortless charm. His 6-foot frame impeccably dressed, dark hair perfectly coiffed, and blue eyes twinkling with practiced sincerity. "To the Charleston Children's Hospital," he continued, "and to my beautiful wife Karen, whose tireless fundraising efforts have made tonight's record-breaking donations possible." All eyes turned to Karen Elizabeth Bennett Johnson. At 32, she stood slightly apart from the crowd, her modest emerald gown highlighting her 6-month pregnant belly rather than hiding it. Her genuine smile reached her eyes as she nodded graciously at the acknowledgement. Unlike the calculating social climbers that populated these events, Karen's presence exuded authentic warmth. "She's absolutely glowing," whispered Margaret Thornfield, wife of Charleston's mayor, to her companion. "Such a blessing after all these years. The Bennetts must be thrilled to finally have an heir." 5 years of marriage and finally a baby," her friend responded, though heaven knows Tyler's had plenty of practice trying. The women tittered behind jeweled hands, unaware that Karen had approached. "Mrs. Thornfield, Mrs. Cavendish, thank you both for coming tonight," Karen said, resting a protective hand on her belly. "Your generosity means everything to those children." The women straightened, caught in their gossip. "Karen, darling, you've outdone yourself. $300,000 in one evening." "It's not me," Karen answered with characteristic humility. "It's this community. God blesses those who look after his most vulnerable." Across the room, Tyler watched this interaction while nodding mechanically at whatever the bank president was saying. He recognized the exact moment Karen invoked God, a slight lowering of her head, hands clasped momentarily in unconscious prayer. He'd once found her piety charming. Now it was just another reminder of their fundamental incompatibility. "Excuse me, gentlemen," Tyler interrupted smoothly. "I should rescue my wife from the Thornfield interrogation." As Tyler crossed the ballroom, his phone vibrated in his pocket. He knew without looking who it was. He'd have to respond later. "There's my handsome advocate." Karen beamed as he approached, genuine adoration in her eyes. "I was just telling Mrs. Thornfield about the new children's wing." Tyler slipped his arm possessively around Karen's waist, his hand resting just above where their child grew. "My wife would have us donate our entire savings if I didn't occasionally rein her in," he joked, though the glint in his eye carried a sharp edge only Karen would recognize. "Hardly," Karen laughed, though something flickered across her face, a momentary uncertainty. "Tyler's the generous one. He's promised to take on 3 pro bono cases this year for families facing eviction." Tyler's smile remained fixed. "Right, those cases. Speaking of which," he checked his watch. "Karen, we should probably head out soon. Early meeting tomorrow." The farewell process took another 30 minutes. Charleston society observed particular protocols. In the limousine heading home, Karen slipped off her heels with a grateful sigh. "You were magnificent tonight," Tyler said, loosening his bow tie. "Everyone adores you." "I just hope we raised enough," Karen answered, gazing out at the passing streetlights illuminating centuries-old oaks draped with Spanish moss. "Those children deserve—" "They got 300,000, Karen," Tyler interrupted, sharper than intended. Catching himself, he softened his tone. "That's extraordinary. You should be proud." Karen turned to study her husband. "Is everything okay? You seemed distracted tonight." Tyler's phone vibrated again. He ignored it. "Just work stress. The Blackwell merger is falling apart." He reached over to squeeze her hand. "How are you feeling? How's Junior?" The diversion worked. Karen's face lit up as she guided his hand to her belly. "Active tonight, feel that? I think we have a future soccer player." "Or lawyer," Tyler smiled, feeling a genuine flicker of something, not quite paternal pride, but something adjacent to it, a vague discomfort. The Johnson home stood on South Battery Street, a restored 19th century mansion overlooking Charleston Harbor. As the limousine pulled into the circular driveway, The antebellum columns glowed under strategic lighting, designed to emphasize the home's historical significance. "I'll be up in a minute," Tyler said as they entered the marble foyer. "Need to check something in the study." Karen nodded, already heading for the stairs. "Don't be long, baby and I need our personal heater." Her teasing smile held no suspicion. In his mahogany-paneled study, Tyler finally pulled out his phone. 3 missed calls, 5 text messages. "Jessica, where are you?" "Jessica, call me ASAP." "Jessica, did you talk to her about the Savannah property?" "Jessica, Tyler, I'm serious. We need to move on this." "Jessica, fine, meeting tomorrow. The usual place. 1 p.m. Don't be late." Tyler deleted the messages, then poured himself 2 fingers of bourbon. Jessica Rodriguez had burst into his life exactly 2 years ago during a property dispute involving one of his corporate clients. At 28, she carried herself with the confidence of someone who had clawed her way up from nothing. Her real estate agency specialized in luxury properties, and her tactics occasionally skirted ethical boundaries. He'd been instantly drawn to her, not just her obvious beauty with her dark eyes and perpetual tan, but her ruthless pragmatism. Jessica saw the world as Tyler secretly did, a game where winners took everything, and sentiment was for losers. Their affair began 3 weeks after they met. Now, 2 years later, it had evolved into something more complicated than mere infidelity. Upstairs, Tyler found Karen in the nursery, rearranging stuffed animals in the antique crib that had belonged to her great-grandmother. "The pediatrician said the sonogram looks perfect," she said without turning around. 10 fingers, 10 toes. We can find out the gender next week if you want." Tyler leaned against the doorframe, studying his wife. Karen came from old tobacco money. The Bennetts had owned plantations since before the Civil War. While other families lost everything, the Bennetts had diversified into real estate, banking, and shipping. Karen's inheritance was estimated at $2.8 million, mostly in property and blue-chip investments. When they'd met at a charity gala, Tyler had been genuinely captivated by her. Not just her fortune, but her refreshing sincerity in a world of artifice. She'd been 27 then, considered almost an old maid in Charleston society despite her family name. Their courtship had been swift, their wedding lavish. "I've been thinking," Karen said, turning to face him. "If it's a boy, I'd like to name him after my father, Charles Tyler Johnson. We could call him Charlie." Tyler crossed the room and wrapped his arms around her. "Whatever makes you happy." Karen leaned into him, trusting and warm. "I never thought I could be this happy, Tyler. A wonderful husband, a baby on the way. God has blessed me beyond measure." Over her shoulder, Tyler caught his reflection in the nursery mirror, his expression momentarily naked, revealing something cold and calculating beneath his perfect husband facade. "I was thinking," he said carefully, "maybe we should invest in that Savannah development I mentioned. The timing seems right." Karen pulled back slightly. "The one that requires liquidating my grandmother's trust. I thought we agreed that would stay untouched for the baby's education." "It's just a thought," Tyler backpedaled smoothly. "The projected returns are exceptional." "Let's discuss it after the baby comes," Karen suggested. "I'd rather focus on our family right now." Later, as Karen slept peacefully beside him, Tyler returned to his phone. "Can't talk about Savannah property yet. She's still resistant. Need more time." Jessica's response came almost immediately. "We don't have more time. The opportunity closes next month. $300K minimum buy-in." Tyler typed carefully. "Working on it. Trust me." The reply made his blood run cold. "Tired of waiting, Tyler. That baby complicates everything. We need to resolve this now. She needs to disappear from the equation." Tyler stared at the message, his mind racing. He looked over at Karen's sleeping form, one hand protectively curved over her pregnant belly, her face serene with trust and love. What exactly was Jessica suggesting, and why didn't the idea horrify him as much as it should? The Charleston Harbor Marina gleamed under the midday sun as Tyler pulled his BMW into a reserved spot. The dashboard clock read 1:17 p.m. He was late, and Jessica hated waiting. Manicured walkways wound between multi-million-dollar yachts, bobbing gently in their slips. At the end of Dock C, the Southern Comfort stood out, a 52-foot Hatteras with sleek lines and tinted windows. Jessica's most recent commission from a tech mogul who visited Charleston twice a year. She waited on the aft deck, oversized sunglasses hiding her expression. a champagne bottle chilled in an ice bucket beside her. "You're late," she said without looking up from her phone. Tyler removed his suit jacket. "Client call ran long. Couldn't exactly say I needed to rush to meet my mistress." Jessica's lips curved into a predatory smile. "Mistress? Such an old-fashioned word. I prefer strategic partner." She rose from her lounger, her red dress clinging to every curve as she moved toward him. Unlike Karen's natural beauty, Jessica's was carefully crafted, from her highlighted hair to her sculpted body. She wrapped her arms around his neck, pressing against him. "You smell like her perfume," she murmured, nose wrinkling. "She's my wife," Tyler replied, stiffening slightly. Jessica pulled back, studying him through her sunglasses. "Not for much longer if we play this right." She poured 2 glasses of champagne. "Tell me about the Savannah property conversation." Tyler accepted the glass. "She won't liquidate the trust. Says it's for the baby's education." "The baby?" Jessica scoffed. "That's all she talks about now, isn't it? Little Charlie or whatever ridiculous name she's chosen." She drained half her glass. "Did you even try to convince her?" "Of course I did," Tyler snapped. "But Karen's not stupid. She knows that trust is worth nearly $1 million. She won't touch it without a compelling reason." Jessica set down her glass with deliberate care. "Then give her one. Tell her your firm is downsizing. Tell her you're being sued. I don't care what lie you choose, Tyler, but that money is our ticket." "Our ticket to what, exactly?" Tyler asked, suddenly weary. Jessica's laugh was sharp. "To everything. The development opportunity in Savannah is just the beginning. With her money, we could control real estate all along the coast. Within 5 years, we'd be worth 10 times what the Bennetts ever were." She leaned closer, lowering her voice though they were alone. "You think I want to sell overpriced houses to rich assholes forever? You think you want to handle corporate mergers until you die? We're better than that." Tyler turned away, looking out at the water. "And my message last night? What exactly did you mean by Karen disappearing from the equation?" Jessica circled him slowly, predatory. "Divorce, Tyler. Simple as that. But it needs to happen before the baby arrives. Once that kid is born, she'll take you for everything." "Divorce would still only get me half," Tyler pointed out, "and Charleston judges favor mothers." "Not if she's deemed an unfit mother," Jessica countered, her voice silky. "Not if evidence emerges of mental instability, dangerous religious fanaticism, perhaps even substance abuse affecting the pregnancy." Tyler stared at her. "You're talking about fabricating evidence against the mother of my child." Jessica removed her sunglasses, her dark eyes intense. "I'm talking about securing our future by any means necessary. Karen had everything handed to her from birth. We've had to fight for every scrap. Don't you think it's our turn?" She pressed against him again, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Just imagine it, Tyler. No more pretending to care about charity galas. No more listening to her pray before every meal. Just you and me, building an empire." As her lips found his, Tyler felt himself surrendering to her vision. Jessica had always known exactly how to ignite his darkest ambitions. "Working late again?" Karen's voice held no accusation as Tyler entered their bedroom at 11 p.m. She sat propped against pillows, reading glasses perched on her nose, a dog-eared Bible in her lap. "The Morrison case is a nightmare," he lied smoothly, loosening his tie. "Depositions all afternoon, then strategy sessions." Karen smiled sympathetically. "You work too hard. At least it's Friday. Maybe this weekend we can drive out to the plantation. The azaleas are blooming." Tyler felt a stab of guilt. He'd promised Jessica they'd look at properties in Savannah on Saturday. "Actually," he began, the lie forming effortlessly, "the senior partners called an emergency weekend retreat, some corporate restructuring discussion. I'll have to drive to Myrtle Beach tomorrow morning." The disappointment flickered across Karen's face before she masked it with understanding. "Of course, the firm comes first," she hesitated. "It just seems like there have been a lot of emergency meetings lately." Tyler tensed. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing," Karen backtracked. "Just that I miss you, and I thought we agreed you'd scale back once the baby comes." Tyler forced a smile, sitting on the bed beside her. "That's still the plan. Just need to secure my position first." He placed a hand on her belly. "How's the little linebacker today?" The diversion worked. Karen launched into a detailed account of her doctor's visit, prenatal vitamins, and nursery color schemes. Tyler nodded at appropriate intervals, his mind already in Savannah with Jessica. "Mijo, what is this?" Carmen Rodriguez stood in the doorway of her daughter's condo, holding up a man's watch. "Rolex. Very expensive. Jessica snatched it from her mother's hand. It's none of your business, Mama. And how many times have I told you to call before coming over? Carmen, a petite woman with dignified grey streaks in her dark hair, crossed herself. This belongs to that married man, doesn't it? The lawyer with the pregnant wife. His name is Tyler, Jessica snapped, securing the watch in a drawer. And keep your voice down. Carmen followed her daughter into the sleek kitchen. At 55, she still carried herself with the pride that had sustained her through decades of cleaning houses in Charleston's wealthiest neighborhoods, including, once upon a time, the Bennett estate. "This is beneath you, Jessica," she said in rapid Spanish. "I raised you better than to steal another woman's husband." Jessica slammed a cabinet door. "I'm not stealing anything that isn't already looking to escape. Tyler and I love each other." Carmen's laugh held no humor. "Love? You think I don't know what you're really after? The Bennett's money." Jessica froze. "You don't know what you're talking about." "I know exactly what I'm talking about." Carmen switched to English. "I cleaned their summer home for 15 years. I watched little Karen grow up. That family treated me with respect, paid for your quinceañera when I couldn't afford it. Ancient history," Jessica dismissed. "And if they were so wonderful, why were you still cleaning their toilets?" Carmen's eyes flashed. "Because I have dignity. Something you seem to have forgotten." She moved closer. "That woman is carrying a child, Jessica. An innocent baby. A baby that will inherit everything while we get nothing," Jessica retorted. "Why should she have it all just because she was born a Bennett?" Carmen studied her daughter sadly. "What happened to you? Where is my little girl who wanted to make honest money, who was going to be the first Rodriguez with a college degree?" Jessica turned away. "That little girl grew up and saw how the world really works." "And how is that?" "The rich take what they want, so I'm going to become one of them." Jessica's phone chimed with a text. Tyler confirming their Savannah plans. Carmen watched her daughter's face change, softening into something almost vulnerable. "You actually care for him, don't you?" Jessica didn't answer. "He will never leave her for you," Carmen said quietly. "Men like that. They use girls like you and return to their wives." "You don't know him," Jessica snapped. "I know his type. I've cleaned up after them for decades." Carmen gathered her purse. "This can only end in heartbreak. If not yours, then an innocent woman's. And I won't stand by and watch." "What's that supposed to mean?" Jessica demanded. Carmen paused at the door. "It means I raised you better, and it means I still believe you can find your conscience before it's too late." After her mother left, Jessica poured herself a generous glass of wine, Tyler's watch heavy in her pocket. She hadn't told him, but she'd already put down a deposit on one of the Savannah properties using her own savings, money she couldn't afford to lose. Time was running out. Karen sat in her car outside Tyler's office building, her hands trembling slightly on the steering wheel. She'd decided to surprise him with lunch, his favorite gourmet sandwiches from the deli near the harbor. But when she'd arrived at reception, the confused secretary informed her that Tyler had left at noon for a client meeting at the Charleston Club, the same Charleston Club that had called their home that morning about confirming Tyler's Saturday reservation, the day he was supposedly in Myrtle Beach. Now, uncertainty gnawed at her. She glanced down at the lunch bag on the passenger seat, then at her wedding ring, a Bennett family heirloom diamond reset in platinum when Tyler proposed. Her phone buzzed with a text from Tyler. "In depositions all afternoon. Might be late again." Another lie. As she drove away, Karen caught sight of a familiar BMW pulling into the marina parking lot. Tyler's car. She nearly followed him, then stopped herself. What would she do? Confront him in public? Create a scene? Instead, she found herself turning toward Mount Pleasant, toward the white steeple of the church where she'd been baptized, where she and Tyler had exchanged vows, where she'd always found solace. Reverend Thompson was tending the memorial garden when she arrived, his weathered hands gently pruning roses. At 65, he'd been a spiritual father to Karen since childhood. "Karen," he greeted warmly, then noticed her expression. "What troubles you, child?" She stood in the dappled shade of magnolia trees, one hand protectively cradling her belly. "Reverend Thompson," Karen said, her voice barely above a whisper. "There's something about my marriage that I need to confess." The church office smelled of old books and lemon polish. Sunlight filtered through stained glass, casting colored patterns across the worn wooden floor. Reverend Thompson placed a cup of chamomile tea before Karen, then settled into his creaking leather chair. "I don't even know where to begin," Karen said, staring into her untouched tea. "I feel foolish coming here." "The Lord's house is always open to troubled hearts," Thompson replied, his Carolina drawl softened by decades of theological education. Karen twisted her wedding ring nervously. "It's Tyler. He's been different lately, distant, working late constantly, weekend meetings that appear out of nowhere." She looked up, eyes glistening. "And I found receipts for restaurants I've never been to, charges at hotels here in Charleston." Thompson leaned forward. "Karen, are you suggesting—" "I don't know what I'm suggesting," she interrupted. "Tyler is a good man, a respected attorney. Perhaps I'm just being paranoid because of the pregnancy." "What does your heart tell you?" Thompson asked gently. Karen's shoulders slumped. "That something isn't right, that he's hiding something. But I've always believed marriage requires trust." "Trust is indeed sacred," Thompson agreed. "But so is truth." He hesitated. "Have you confronted him?" "I almost did today. I saw his car at the marina when he was supposed to be in depositions." Her hand trembled as she finally took a sip of tea. "But what if I'm wrong? What if there's an innocent explanation? I don't want to accuse him unjustly." Thompson studied the young woman before him. He'd known Karen since she was a child with pigtails and skinned knees, sitting in the front pew with her parents. He'd officiated her wedding to Tyler, though even then, something about the young lawyer had struck him as calculated. "Karen, sometimes we must prepare for difficult truths, while praying they never materialize," he said carefully. "What are you considering?" Karen straightened, a flash of Bennett determination crossing her face. "I need to protect my child, Reverend. If my suspicions are correct, I can't risk leaving my family's legacy vulnerable." 3 days earlier, Carmen Rodriguez knelt in Jessica's closet, searching for the rosary her daughter had borrowed. Instead, her fingers found a thick manila envelope hidden beneath shoeboxes. Carmen hesitated, guilt warring with maternal concern. Jessica had been secretive lately, spending lavishly despite complaints about commission checks. Against her better judgment, Carmen opened the envelope. Inside were property brochures for Savannah developments, financial statements for Bennett family holdings, and most disturbing, dozens of intimate photos of Jessica with a handsome man Carmen recognized from charity events. Tyler Johnson, husband to Karen Bennett. Carmen's hand flew to her mouth. One photo showed them in an embrace on a yacht, another entering a hotel. The most recent was dated just last week. As she processed this betrayal, Carmen's phone rang. The Bennett household. The family's longtime housekeeper needed emergency coverage. "Of course, Martha," Carmen agreed automatically. "I'll be there in 30 minutes." At the Bennett estate, Carmen found herself assigned to clean the master suite. Guilt gnawed at her as she dusted bookshelves and changed linens, knowing what she knew about the mistress of the house's husband. When Karen returned unexpectedly, Carmen nearly dropped a vase. "Mrs. Rodriguez!" Karen exclaimed warmly. "I didn't know you were filling in today. How wonderful to see you." Carmen managed to smile, though her heart ached looking at Karen's pregnant form. "Just helping Martha. Her arthritis is acting up." Karen insisted Carmen join her for tea, asking after her family with genuine interest. When Carmen mentioned Jessica's real estate success, Karen beamed. "That's wonderful. Tyler mentioned a brilliant young agent helping with some property questions. I wonder if it's your daughter." Carmen's blood ran cold. "Perhaps," she managed. "There are several agencies in Charleston." Later, alone in her apartment, Carmen spread the photos across her kitchen table. Beside them, she placed an old photograph, a teenage Jessica grinning beside a young Karen Bennett at a charity picnic the family had hosted for staff families. "Dios mío," Carmen whispered. "What have you done, mija?" 3 attorneys and a notary gathered in Reverend Thompson's office the following Tuesday. Karen sat straight-backed in a simple navy dress, her expression serene despite the gravity of the occasion. "Are you absolutely certain about this, Mrs. Johnson?" asked Edwin Blackwell, the Bennett family's attorney for 3 generations. "These changes are substantial." "I am," Karen replied firmly. "My family's wealth was always meant to serve a greater purpose. This ensures it will, regardless of circumstances." The Revised Testament stipulated that all Bennett family assets, properties, investments, heirlooms valued at approximately $2.8 million would transfer not to Tyler upon her death, but to a trust administered by the church for the establishment of a children's home in her family's name. Tyler would receive only their joint assets, the home they'd purchased together, their shared accounts, and a modest insurance policy. "And if the child survives you?" Blackwell inquired delicately. "He or she will be provided for through a separate educational trust with Reverend Thompson as executor," Karen answered. "I've outlined everything." As she signed each document, Karen felt not bitterness but a strange peace. She prayed she was wrong about Tyler, that these documents would gather dust for decades. But a whisper of intuition told her otherwise. "Keep these secure," she instructed Blackwell, "and tell no one." September mornings in Charleston carried the first hint of autumn's crispness. Karen hummed softly as she drove her Volvo sedan along King Street, heading to a routine prenatal appointment. At 7 months pregnant, she glowed with anticipation. The night before, she'd confronted Tyler gently about his absences. He'd seemed genuinely remorseful, promising to scale back work and focus on their family. They'd spent the evening selecting nursery furniture, almost like the couple they'd once been. Perhaps her suspicions had been unfounded after all. At the intersection of King and Broad, the traffic light turned green. Karen proceeded carefully, smiling at the mental image of Tyler painting the nursery walls the soft yellow they'd chosen. She never saw the red pickup truck running the light from the cross street, its driver slumped over the wheel, empty whiskey bottle rolling on the passenger floor. The impact was catastrophic, sending her Volvo spinning into a historic brick building. First responders worked frantically to extract Karen from the wreckage, but the damage was too severe. Karen Elizabeth Bennett Johnson and her unborn son were pronounced dead at the scene. Tyler was reviewing contracts when his office door burst open. His secretary stood trembling, face ashen. "Mr. Johnson, the police are here. There's been an accident. It's your wife." The next hours passed in a blur. The sterile hospital corridors, the solemn-faced doctor, forms to sign, calls to make. Tyler moved through it all with a strange detachment, as though watching someone else perform the role of grieving husband. When finally alone in the hospital chapel, a realization struck him with physical force. He was free. The obstacle to his future with Jessica, gone in an instant. No messy divorce, no custody battles, no splitting assets. The thought brought an immediate wave of self-loathing, followed by something even more disturbing. Relief. His phone vibrated. "Jessica." "I just heard," she whispered when he answered. "Tyler, I'm so sorry." "Are you?" he asked, surprising himself with the bitterness in his voice. "Of course I am," Jessica replied, though something in her tone rang false. "This is terrible, tragic." "I'll need to call you back," Tyler said. "I have arrangements to make." "Of course, but Tyler..." She paused. "What does this mean for us? For the Savannah property?" The question hung between them, revealing the callousness beneath her condolences. "My wife and child just died, Jessica," he said flatly, then ended the call. But as he drove to the Bennett estate to inform Karen's relatives, Tyler couldn't escape the calculation already forming in his mind. How soon would be appropriate to access Karen's accounts? When could he reasonably sell the house? How quickly could life insurance be processed? The performance began immediately. The devastated husband, the father mourning his unborn son. He chose the mahogany casket, selected hymns for the service, accepted condolences with head bowed and voice breaking at appropriate moments. Through it all, a voice whispered, "You're finally free. Everything you wanted is within reach." In the church archives room, Reverend Thompson removed Karen's testament from a locked cabinet. The ink was barely dry on the documents, signed just 2 days before her death. Divine timing, perhaps. Beside the legal papers lay an envelope addressed to him in Karen's elegant handwriting, "To be opened in the event of my death." Inside was a letter that made the elderly pastor sink heavily into his chair. "Dear Reverend Thompson, if you're reading this, my intuition was correct. I pray I'm wrong, but if something has happened to me, please investigate Tyler's relationship with a real estate agent named Jessica Rodriguez. I found hotel receipts and messages suggesting an affair. I don't write this from bitterness or desire for revenge. I've already forgiven whatever transgressions may exist, but I must protect the Bennett legacy from being squandered. Our family wealth was always meant to serve God's purpose, not fuel earthly ambitions. The enclosed USB drive contains financial records and evidence I've gathered. Use it only if necessary to ensure my wishes are carried out." With faith and love, Karen Thompson stared at the small drive in his palm, then at the testament that would deny Tyler Johnson his expected windfall. Karen had suspected more than an affair. She'd feared something darker. Karen always said truth finds its way to light, the Reverend murmured, tucking both items into his Bible. Now it falls to me to ensure that happens. His finger traced the final provision in her testament, a clause requiring a thorough investigation should her death occur under anything less than natural circumstances, as if she'd somehow known. Outside the window, workers were preparing the church cemetery for tomorrow's funeral. Tyler Johnson stood among them, cell phone pressed to his ear, gesturing emphatically as the gravediggers worked. For a moment, something cold and uncharacteristically vengeful stirred in the elderly pastor's heart. Charleston had not witnessed such a funeral procession in decades. The historic Church of the Holy Cross overflowed with mourners. The pews packed with Charleston's elite alongside charity workers, teachers and children from Karen's literacy programs. Outside, hundreds more gathered under ancient oak trees, listening to the service through speakers. 2 caskets lay before the altar. One standard, one heartbreakingly small. White roses and baby's breath covered both, their fragrance almost overwhelming in the September heat. Tyler Johnson sat alone in the front pew, head bowed, shoulders occasionally shaking with what appeared to be silent sobs. His tailored black suit seemed to hang on his frame, as though he'd lost weight overnight. Every few minutes, he would reach out to touch the larger casket, the gesture both tender and theatrical. "We gather today to celebrate the life of Karen Elizabeth Bennett Johnson," Reverend Thompson began, his voice steady despite the emotion evident in his weathered face, "and the life of her unborn son, Charles Tyler Johnson, taken too soon from this world." As Thompson spoke of Karen's kindness, her faith, her charitable works, he watched Tyler closely. The younger man maintained his performance flawlessly, dabbing at eyes that remained curiously dry, accepting supportive touches from Karen's cousins with gracious nods. "Karen believed in the promise of redemption," Thompson continued. "She saw goodness in everyone she met, sometimes even when that goodness was buried beneath layers of deception." At this, Tyler's head lifted slightly, eyes narrowing as they met the Reverend's. Something passed between them, a challenge issued and received. In the back of the church, partially hidden by a wide-brimmed black hat and veil, Jessica Rodriguez shifted uncomfortably. She had not planned to attend, but curiosity had drawn her. She needed to see Tyler in this moment, to gauge what their future might hold. Her mother's words echoed in her mind. Attending that funeral would be the final sacrilege. Carmen had refused to speak to her for days after discovering Jessica had no intention of ending the affair. After the service, the procession wound through historic Charleston to the church cemetery. As the caskets were lowered into the ground, Tyler threw a white rose onto each, his face a mask of perfect grief. "Dust to dust," intoned Thompson. "Ashes to ashes," in the sure and certain hope of resurrection. The gathering slowly dispersed after the burial, mourners making their way to the Bennett estate for the reception. Tyler remained by the grave, accepting condolences with downcast eyes and murmured thanks. Thompson watched from the chapel doorway as the cemetery emptied. Only then did he notice Jessica slipping behind the historic crematorium building, and Tyler's eyes following her. Making a quick decision, Thompson moved silently along the perimeter of the cemetery, years of groundskeeping giving him intimate knowledge of hidden pathways. He positioned himself behind an ancient oak, its massive trunk and Spanish moss providing perfect concealment. "What are you doing here?" Tyler's harsh whisper carried in the quiet cemetery. "This is beyond inappropriate." "I needed to see you," Jessica replied, removing her veil, "to make sure you're okay." "I'm burying my wife and son," Tyler hissed. "Of course I'm not okay." Jessica stepped closer, placing a hand on his arm. "I meant us. Are we okay?" Thompson felt his blood pressure rise at the woman's audacity. He leaned closer, straining to hear. "This isn't the time or place," Tyler said, glancing around nervously. "When, then?" Jessica pressed. "It's been 3 days, Tyler. You've barely responded to my messages." "I'm a little busy with funeral arrangements," he snapped. Jessica's voice dropped lower. "The Savannah property closes next week. We need to move quickly if we're going to secure it." "Jesus, Jessica. Have some respect." "Respect?" Her laugh was bitter. "Don't pretend this isn't exactly what you wanted, what we both wanted." Tyler grabbed her arm roughly. "Lower your voice. People could hear." "No one's around," Jessica dismissed. "Everyone's at the reception drinking to St. Karen's memory." "Don't talk about her like that," Tyler warned. Jessica's expression softened. She moved closer, straightening his tie with practiced intimacy. "I'm sorry. That was cruel." Her hand lingered on his chest. "I just need to know where we stand, Tyler. Did anything change?" Thompson held his breath, witnessing the moment Tyler's mask slipped completely. The grief evaporated from his face, replaced by cold calculation. "Nothing's changed," Tyler said finally, "but the timing has. I need to play this perfectly. The whole town is watching me." "How long?" "A few months of appropriate mourning. Then I'll access Karen's accounts, liquidate what I can, and we'll move forward with our plans." Tyler glanced toward the fresh grave. "This is actually cleaner than divorce would have been." Jessica smiled, reaching up to kiss him. "Finally free," she whispered against his lips. Thompson nearly stumbled backward, sickened by the confirmation of his worst fears. As the couple embraced against the crematorium wall, the elderly pastor retreated silently, Karen's letter burning in his pocket like a brand. The reception at the Bennett estate stretched into evening. Tyler performed his role expertly, sharing tender anecdotes about Karen with tearful relatives, accepting casseroles from church ladies with grateful humility, looking appropriately overwhelmed when someone mentioned the nursery. "Such a tragedy," whispered Margaret Thornfield to her husband. "Look at the poor man, absolutely devastated." "He's handling it with remarkable strength," the mayor replied. Always admired Johnson's composure. Across the room, Reverend Thompson overheard this exchange and fought to maintain his own composure. The USB drive in his pocket contained evidence that demanded action, but first he needed absolute certainty. As twilight fell, the crowd thinned. Tyler stood alone on the veranda, bourbon in hand, staring out at the gardens Karen had lovingly tended. "Mr. Johnson," Thompson approached quietly. "Might I have a word?" Tyler turned, his expression immediately shifting back to appropriate grief. "Of course, Reverend. Your service today was beautiful. Karen would have appreciated it." "I believe there are matters we should discuss," Thompson said carefully, "regarding Karen's wishes." Something flickered in Tyler's eyes, wariness perhaps. "Her wishes?" "For her estate," Thompson clarified. "She made certain arrangements you should be aware of." Tyler straightened, interest visibly piqued. "I assumed we'd discuss that after an appropriate period of mourning." "Of course," Thompson nodded. "However, as executor of certain aspects of her will, I'm obligated to inform you promptly." "Executor?" Tyler's voice sharpened. "I thought Edwin Blackwell handled all Bennett family legal matters." "He does primarily," Thompson agreed, "but Karen made some specific provisions. Perhaps we could meet at the church tomorrow, 10 o'clock? Tyler's jaw tightened momentarily before he forced a solemn nod. "I'll be there." The following morning, Tyler sat in his home office, phone pressed to his ear. "What do you mean, executor?" he demanded. "I'm her husband. Everything passes to me automatically." His attorney's voice came through cautiously. "Not necessarily, Tyler. If she had separate assets or family trusts established before your marriage, those may have specific provisions." "Find out what they are," Tyler ordered. "Immediately. These things take time." "I don't have time," Tyler interrupted. "Reverend Thompson is acting like he has some authority over Karen's estate. I need to know exactly what I'm dealing with before I meet with him." After ending the call, Tyler paced the office. The attorney's hesitation suggested complications he hadn't anticipated. Karen had always been transparent about finances during their marriage, or so he'd thought. His phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. "Any updates on the estate? Savannah property closing in 8 days. Tyler ignored it, opening his laptop instead to examine their joint accounts. The modest insurance policy had already been processed, $150,000 paid directly to him as beneficiary. The house they shared was jointly owned, but the Bennett fortune, the properties, investments, family heirlooms, those were what he needed, what he'd endured 5 years of marriage for. A quick search of Karen's desk revealed nothing unusual. No hidden documents, no secret files. Whatever arrangements she'd made, she'd kept them well concealed. Tyler loosened his tie, anxiety building. He'd calculated everything so carefully, the appropriate mourning period, the gradual liquidation of assets, the eventual move to Savannah with Jessica to build their real estate empire. Any disruption to this timeline threatened everything. His phone rang, the family lawyer returning his call. "Tyler," Blackwell began, his tone uncharacteristically grave, "I've spoken with my partners. It appears Karen did update her will recently. However, I'm not at liberty to discuss the details with you directly. What the hell does that mean? Tyler demanded. I'm her husband. It means, Blackwell replied carefully, that you should attend your meeting with Reverend Thompson tomorrow. He has been authorized to explain certain aspects of the arrangements. Tyler ended the call with a curse, hurling the phone onto his desk. For the first time, real fear crept in. What had Karen done? As evening fell, Tyler poured himself a third bourbon, mind racing. He needed contingency plans. If Karen had somehow restricted his access to her fortune, there had to be legal recourse. Undue influence, perhaps. He could suggest she wasn't of sound mind in late pregnancy. The doorbell interrupted his plotting. Opening the front door, Tyler found only darkness and the scent of night-blooming jasmine. As he turned to close it, his foot struck something on the doorstep. A plain white envelope. Inside was a single card bearing handwritten text, I know what you did. Church tomorrow, 10 a.m. The bourbon glass slipped from Tyler's hand, shattering on the marble entry floor. Morning sunlight filtered through stained glass windows, casting prismatic patterns across the worn oak floor of Reverend Thompson's office. The church had stood since 1802, witnessing countless confessions, prayers, and reckonings. Today would bring another. Tyler arrived precisely at 10, his Armani suit a stark contrast to the Reverend's simple clerical attire. Despite the early hour, Tyler's eyes were bloodshot, his usually meticulous appearance slightly disheveled. Thank you for coming, Thompson said, not offering his hand. Your note left little choice, Tyler replied coldly. What exactly do you think you know? Thompson gestured to a chair. Please, sit. What we have to discuss will take some time. Tyler remained standing. I prefer directness, Reverend. If you have accusations to make them. Very well. Thompson moved to his desk and removed a leather portfolio. 3 weeks before her death, Karen came to me with concerns about your fidelity. She was reluctant to believe the worst, but felt something was amiss. Tyler's expression hardened. My wife was 7 months pregnant. Hormones often cause... Spare me, Thompson interrupted, with uncharacteristic sharpness. Karen was not imagining things, as we both know. He opened the portfolio, revealing legal documents bearing official seals. Acting on her intuition, Karen revised her will. I've asked Mr. Blackwell to join us momentarily to explain the legal details, but the essence is simple. Karen altered the disposition of her family's assets. Tyler's composure slipped slightly. What are you saying? The Bennett fortune, all of it, has been placed in a charitable trust, Thompson stated flatly. The funds will establish and maintain the Karen Bennett Memorial Orphanage and support programs for single mothers in crisis. Tyler sank into the chair, blood draining from his face. That's impossible. She can't just... She can and did, Thompson continued. The Bennett assets were family holdings predating your marriage. Karen had complete legal authority to direct their disposition. A sharp knock preceded Edwin Blackwell's entrance. The silver-haired attorney nodded curtly to Tyler before placing additional documents on the desk. Mr. Johnson, Blackwell began formally, as I'm sure Reverend Thompson has informed you, Mrs. Johnson made significant changes to her estate planning. These changes were executed properly, witnessed appropriately, and are legally binding. Tyler leaned forward. There must be provisions for me, her husband. Community property laws apply only to assets acquired during marriage, Blackwell finished. The Bennett holdings, approximately $2.8 million in property, investments, and heirlooms, remained separate property. You will, of course, retain your joint accounts totaling roughly $150,000 and your shared residence. Tyler's mind raced. This is, I can contest this, undue influence. She was pregnant, emotional. I anticipated that response, Blackwell interrupted, sliding forward a video tablet. Karen recorded this statement specifically to address such claims. The screen illuminated with Karen's face, serene, composed, unmistakably lucid. She sat in this very office, hands folded protectively over her pregnant belly. If this recording is being viewed, she began, her voice steady, it means I'm no longer here to explain my decisions. I want to state clearly that I am of sound mind, under no duress or influence, and these decisions represent my carefully considered wishes. Tyler watched, transfixed, as his dead wife continued. My family's wealth has always been intended for community benefit. While I had hoped to share this legacy with my husband and children, circumstances have led me to make other arrangements. This is not done from malice, but from responsibility to my family's values." The recording ended. Silence filled the office. "She suspected," Tyler finally said, his voice hollow. "But she couldn't have known for certain." Thompson hesitated, then placed a sealed envelope on the desk. "Actually, she did." Tyler stared at the envelope as though it might bite him. 3 days before her death, Karen received this. "Out of respect for your privacy, she asked me to hold it unless necessary." Tyler opened it with trembling fingers. Inside were photographs, himself and Jessica in intimate embraces, hotel receipts, text message transcripts, and a handwritten letter signed by Carmen Rodriguez. "Carmen," Tyler whispered, "Jessica's mother." Thompson nodded grimly. "Mrs. Rodriguez worked for the Bennett family for many years. When she discovered her daughter's involvement with you, her conscience wouldn't allow her to remain silent." Tyler flipped through the photos, shock giving way to fury. "That meddling cleaning lady destroyed everything." "No, Tyler," Thompson corrected sharply. "Your choices destroyed everything. Carmen merely exposed the truth." Tyler stood abruptly, gathering the photos. "I'll fight this. I have rights. This whole arrangement reeks of suspicious timing." "Fight if you must," Blackwell said wearily. But Karen anticipated this reaction. The trust is ironclad, established across multiple jurisdictions. Litigation would be lengthy, expensive, and ultimately futile. "And public," Thompson added quietly. "Very, very public." The implication hung in the air. Tyler's reputation, his standing in the community, his legal career, all would be devastated by the scandal. "You have no right to judge me," Tyler snarled at Thompson. "You've never wanted for anything. Neither did Karen. You have no idea what it's like to claw your way up from nothing." "Perhaps not," Thompson conceded. "But I know the difference between ambition and betrayal." Tyler moved toward the door, then paused. "Does anyone else know?" "Not from me," Thompson answered. "What happens next depends largely on your choices." Jessica's condominium overlooked Charleston Harbor, its sleek modern interior a statement of aspiration rather than achievement. When Tyler burst through her door unannounced, she was on a business call, elegantly dressed for a showing. "I'll call you back," she said quickly, ending the call at the sight of Tyler's expression. "What happened?" Tyler threw the envelope onto her glass coffee table, photos spilling across the surface. "Your mother happened." Jessica's composure faltered as she recognized the images. "Where did you get these?" "Karen had them," Tyler replied, pacing the room like a caged animal. "She knew everything. She changed her will, Jessica. Everything goes to charity. There's nothing left for us." Jessica sank onto her white leather sofa, processing this information. "Nothing? What about the house, the insurance?" "A pittance," Tyler spat. "Barely enough to cover funeral expenses and mortgage payments for a few months." Jessica's perfectly manicured hand drifted to the photos. "My mother did this. Why would she? Apparently she has a conscience," Tyler interrupted bitterly. "Unlike her daughter." Jessica's eyes flashed. "Don't you dare take the moral high ground with me. You were just as invested in this as I was." "I loved you," Tyler said, his voice breaking. "Yes, I wanted the money, but I genuinely loved you." Something shifted in Jessica's expression. A coldness, a calculation that had always been there, but now stood naked and unashamed. "Oh, Tyler," she said with a pitying smile. "You didn't really think this was about love, did you?" The words hit him like physical blows. "I needed a partner with financial resources," she continued matter-of-factly. "You needed access to Karen's fortune. It was a mutually beneficial arrangement." "Arrangement," Tyler echoed incredulously. 2 years, Jessica. Secret weekends, promises, plans for our future. Plans that required Karen's money, Jessica cut in. "Without that, what exactly do we have? Your middling law career, my commission-based income. That's not enough for what I want." Tyler stared at her, seeing for the first time the emptiness behind her beauty. "You never loved me." Jessica sighed as if explaining something to a child. "Love is a luxury for people who already have everything else secured. I grew up watching my mother clean toilets for families like the Bennetts. I swore I'd never live that life. So I was just a means to an end," Tyler said flatly. "We both were using each other," Jessica shrugged. "Don't pretend you married Karen for love. The difference is, I'm honest about my priorities." Tyler sank into a chair. "What about the Savannah property?" Already sold my interest to another investor, Jessica replied coolly. I cut my losses when I heard about Karen's death. Without her money, the plan wasn't viable. You knew, Tyler realized suddenly. You already knew about the will when I called you after the accident. Jessica didn't deny it. I had suspicions. My mother mentioned something about Karen meeting with lawyers. I hoped it wasn't true. The final betrayal settled over Tyler like a shroud. So you were ready to walk away the moment the money disappeared. Business is business, Tyler, Jessica said, gathering the photos into a neat pile. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a showing in 30 minutes. That's it? Tyler stood, disbelieving. 2 years end just like that? Jessica paused at her bedroom door. What did you expect? Tears? Declarations of undying love? We're adults who made a bad investment. Now we move on. When she emerged minutes later, Tyler still sat motionless, staring at nothing. Jessica placed the collected photos on his lap. A word of advice, she said, applying fresh lipstick. Burn these. Move somewhere new. Start over. She kissed his cheek, leaving a perfect crimson imprint. No hard feelings. The door closed behind her with a soft, final click. Within weeks, whispers spread through Charleston society. Tyler was notably absent from community events. The law firm announced his extended leave of absence. The Bennett estate remained closed and silent, the garden Karen had loved now overgrown. At the country club, Margaret Thornfield shared discreet rumors about Tyler being seen arguing with a Hispanic-looking woman outside an upscale condominium. At church, congregants noticed the coldness between Reverend Thompson and the widower during the few services Tyler attended before stopping altogether. In her real estate office, Jessica fielded increasingly direct questions about her relationship with poor Tyler Johnson. She deflected expertly, though client referrals mysteriously dried up. Tyler retreated to the empty house on South Battery Street, surrounded by Karen's things, her books, her clothes, the half-finished nursery she'd been so excited about. He drank bourbon from morning till night, ignoring calls from the law firm, from remaining friends, eventually from bill collectors. One night in a drunken haze, he wandered into the nursery. The yellow walls Karen had chosen gleamed softly in the moonlight. The empty crib waited for a child who would never arrive. On the changing table lay a journal, Karen's pregnancy diary. Tyler had never seen it before. With trembling hands, he opened to a random page. Felt the baby kick today during Sunday service. Such a strong little one. Tyler pretended not to be emotional, but I saw tears in his eyes when he felt it too. Sometimes I worry about the distance growing between us, but in moments like these I remember why I fell in love with him. There's goodness in Tyler, buried perhaps, but real. I pray our son helps that goodness grow. Tyler sank to the floor, the diary clutched to his chest, sobs finally breaking through the numbness. For the first time he mourned, not for the fortune lost, but for the woman who had seen goodness in him when none existed, who had loved him despite his betrayal. It was then Tyler realized he had lost far more than money. He had lost the only person who had truly loved him, who had believed in a better version of himself that might have existed had he only chosen differently. 6 months later, the Charleston Post and Courier Society pages no longer mentioned Tyler Johnson. Once a fixture in photographs from charity galas and legal association dinners, his name had disappeared from the city's social consciousness with remarkable speed. Memory was short when scandal lurked beneath the surface, and Charleston's elite had an instinct for detecting fallen stars. Tyler sat alone in his office at Johnson & Associates, a grandiose name for what had become a single-room operation above a bail bonds shop on the unfashionable end of King Street. The brass nameplate on his door remained unpolished, the leather chairs were cracked, and the view from his window revealed only a brick wall rather than the harbor vistas he'd once enjoyed. The phone rarely rang. His former clients had quietly migrated to other firms, citing restructuring needs or diversification strategies, polite euphemisms for abandonment. The few cases that came his way now were minor disputes and low-level criminal defenses that barely covered his overhead. A stack of unopened mail cluttered his desk, mostly bills and collection notices. The South Battery Street house had eaten through his remaining funds with its mortgage payments and maintenance costs. The real estate market had softened, making a quick sale impossible without accepting a significant loss. His computer chimed with an email notification. The subject line read, Karen Bennett Memorial Children's Home, grand opening ceremony. The message was a mass invitation to the dedication of the facility that Karen's fortune had built, the legacy she'd chosen instead of him. Tyler hovered the cursor over the delete button, then stopped. Instead, he printed the invitation and tucked it into his jacket pocket. The ribbon-cutting ceremony for the Karen Bennett Memorial Children's Home drew Charleston's most prominent citizens. The three-story Victorian building had been meticulously renovated, its wraparound porches festooned with balloons and banners proclaiming, "Every child deserves love." Reverend Thompson stood at the podium, silver hair gleaming in the spring sunshine. Karen Bennett Johnson believed that wealth carried responsibility, he was saying as Tyler arrived at the periphery of the crowd. She understood that true legacy is measured not in dollars preserved, but in lives transformed. Tyler lingered behind a massive oak tree, watching from a distance. Former friends and colleagues mingled in the manicured gardens, sipping lemonade and touring the facility that would house 20 children in need. None noticed his presence, or if they did, they carefully avoided acknowledging him. "Our first residents move in next week," Thompson continued. 5 siblings who would otherwise be separated in the foster system will remain together here, in a home filled with the same love and kindness that Karen embodied. Applause rippled through the crowd. Photographers captured the moment as Blackwell presented an oversized check representing the Bennett Trust's endowment, enough to operate the home in perpetuity. As the ceremony concluded, Tyler slipped away unnoticed. The invitation crumpled in his fist. Across town at the Peninsula Club, Jessica Rodriguez showcased her most dazzling smile as she handed property listings to Richard Cunningham, a recently divorced shipping magnate in his 50s. "The waterfront location is unparalleled," she purred, leaning closer than necessary. "The previous owners completely renovated the kitchen with Italian marble." "Impressive," Cunningham nodded, though his eyes remained fixed on Jessica rather than the property photos. "Perhaps we could discuss it over dinner." Jessica's smile deepened. "I'd be delighted. I know a discreet little place on East Bay Street." Her phone buzzed with her mother's name. Jessica ignored it, the third call from Carmen that day. Since the truth about Tyler had emerged, their relationship had deteriorated from strained to virtually non-existent. After securing dinner plans with Cunningham, Jessica returned to her real estate office to find Carmen waiting, rosary beads twisted around gnarled fingers. "Mija," Carmen began, rising from the reception area sofa. "We need to talk." Jessica glanced around the empty office. "I'm working, Mama. Can't this wait?" "It has waited too long already," Carmen replied, following her daughter into her private office. "You haven't answered my calls in weeks." Jessica busied herself with paperwork. "I've been busy rebuilding my client base after you destroyed it." "I destroyed nothing," Carmen said firmly. "Your choices did that." Jessica slammed a drawer shut. "My choices? You sent those photos to Karen. You betrayed your own daughter." "I prevented a greater betrayal," Carmen countered. "That woman was pregnant, Jessica. She had shown kindness to our family when you were young. What you and Tyler planned was evil." "It was business," Jessica insisted. "Nothing personal." Carmen crossed herself reflexively. "There is nothing more personal than destroying a marriage for money. You were not raised this way." Jessica laughed bitterly. "No, I was raised watching you clean houses for rich white families, coming home with aching knees and cracked hands. You taught me exactly what I needed to know, that in this world, you're either serving at the table or sitting at it." "There is dignity in honest work," Carmen replied softly. "There is none in what you did." Jessica turned away, staring out her office window at the harbor where she'd once met Tyler on stolen afternoons. "Is that why you came? More lectures about dignity and morality?" "I came because, despite everything, you are my daughter and I love you," Carmen said. "And because you should know that your actions have consequences beyond what you've seen." Jessica tensed. "What does that mean?" "Tyler Johnson is being investigated by the Bar Association," Carmen revealed. "Anonymous ethics complaints, rumors about client funds. His practice is failing." Jessica turned, studying her mother's face. "Why would I care about Tyler's problems?" "Because the same person who sent those complaints has been contacting your clients," Carmen said quietly, "warning them about your methods." The color drained from Jessica's face. "That's slander. They can't prove anything." "Perhaps not legally," Carmen agreed. "But Charleston runs on whispers, Mija. And whispers have been very busy about you lately. Jessica sank into her chair. Are you behind this? Carmen shook her head sadly. No, but I know who is. Who? Someone who believes justice comes in many forms, Carmen replied cryptically. Someone who made me see that enabling your behavior by remaining silent would only lead you further from redemption. Before Jessica could respond, her assistant knocked tentatively. Ms. Rodriguez, Mr. Cunningham's office called. He needs to reschedule tonight. Something came up unexpectedly. After her assistant retreated, Jessica stared at her mother. This is your doing. No, Jessica, Carmen sighed heavily. This is yours, and it will continue until you make amends. Amends to whom? Jessica demanded. Karen is dead. To yourself, Carmen answered, moving toward the door. To your soul, and perhaps to those whose lives you've damaged along the way. As Carmen left, Jessica's phone chimed with an email. Cunningham had listed his property with another agency. Her third lost listing that week. Sunday morning found Reverend Thompson addressing his congregation, his sermon titled, The High Cost of Deception. We often speak of lies as though they are merely words, he began, scanning the crowded pews. But deception is more than false statements. It's a breach of the sacred trust upon which all relationships are built. In the back row, Tyler sat alone, head bowed. He'd begun attending services again, though he spoke to no one, and left immediately after the benediction. When we deceive those who love us, Thompson continued, we don't simply mislead them. We rob them of their ability to make informed choices. We steal their agency, and in doing so we ultimately deceive ourselves, believing we can find happiness through manipulation. Several congregants shifted uncomfortably. Church attendance had increased since rumors of the Johnson scandal began circulating. Nothing drew a crowd like the promise of moral lessons drawn from another's downfall. Yet even in our darkest moments of betrayal, Thompson's voice softened, redemption remains possible, not through denial or justification, but through genuine repentance and the painful work of making amends. Tyler's eyes lifted, meeting the Reverend's gaze briefly before dropping again. After the service, Thompson found Tyler lingering in the memorial garden where Karen was buried. The headstone was simple yet elegant. Karen Elizabeth Bennett Johnson and Charles Tyler Johnson, beloved of God. You came, Thompson observed, keeping a respectful distance. Tyler nodded, not turning around. Your sermon was pointed, not aimed solely at you, Thompson clarified. We all deceive in various ways. Some more destructively than others, Tyler acknowledged, finally facing the older man. The children's home looks impressive. It will help many families, Thompson agreed. Karen would be pleased. A heavy silence fell between them, broken only by birdsong and distant church bells. I found her pregnancy journal, Tyler finally said. She knew something was wrong, but chose to believe in me anyway. I don't understand that kind of faith. Thompson considered his response carefully. Karen saw goodness in everyone, sometimes accurately, sometimes not. But her ability to hope for the best in others was her greatest strength, not a weakness. I didn't deserve her, Tyler admitted, voice barely audible. No, Thompson agreed bluntly. You didn't. The question is what you do with that knowledge now. Tyler gestured helplessly at the garden, the church, the world beyond. What can I do? I can't undo what happened. I can't bring her back. No, Thompson conceded. But you can honor her memory by becoming the man she believed you could be. Not for her sake now, but for your own. Tyler laughed bitterly. A bit late for redemption, isn't it? My career is in shambles, my reputation destroyed. I'm nearly bankrupt. Redemption isn't about restoring your former status, Thompson corrected. It's about reclaiming your humanity. Before Tyler could respond, the Reverend placed a hand briefly on his shoulder, then walked away, leaving him alone with his thoughts and Karen's silent grave. The South Battery Street house finally sold for significantly less than market value. Tyler had no choice. Creditors were circling, and the maintenance costs alone were draining what remained of his savings. In the master bedroom, he methodically packed clothing and personal items, separating his possessions from Karen's. Her clothes would go to the women's shelter. Her jewelry, what hadn't been liquidated to pay bills, would be donated to the church. The nursery remained untouched until the final day. Tyler stood in the doorway, unable to cross the threshold for several minutes. Finally, he forced himself to enter, to dismantle the crib that would never hold his son, to pack away stuffed animals and tiny clothes that Karen had collected with such joy. In the closet, behind stacked boxes of baby supplies, Tyler found a small safe he'd never seen before. The combination eluded him until he tried Karen's birth date. Too obvious, he thought bitterly. She had trusted too easily. Inside lay documents he'd never seen, Karen's personal journals dating back to college, family photographs, and a sealed envelope addressed simply, "For Tyler, if something happens to me." With trembling hands he opened it, expecting further evidence of his betrayal, perhaps final accusations from beyond the grave. Instead, he found a single sheet of Karen's distinctive stationery dated just weeks before her death. "Dearest Tyler, if you're reading this, something has happened to me, and you found my hidden safe. First, know that I love you. Despite everything, despite the doubts that have crept into our marriage, that love remains constant. I've suspected for some time that something has come between us. Perhaps another woman, perhaps just the gradual drift that happens to many couples. I don't write this from anger, but from sadness and hope. I've made changes to my will that may upset you. Please understand they come not from malice, but from responsibility to my family's legacy. The Bennett wealth was always meant for more than personal comfort. If you're reading this after I'm gone, I want you to know I forgive whatever has happened. Forgiveness isn't absolution, it's freedom. Freedom for me from bitterness, and hopefully, freedom for you to become the man I always believed you could be. I pray that one day you'll understand that true wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in love freely given and purpose faithfully served." With eternal love, Karen Tyler sank to the floor, letter clutched in his hand, Karen's words of forgiveness burning deeper than any condemnation could have. That night, in a cheap hotel room surrounded by packed boxes, Tyler opened his laptop and typed an email to the Bar Association, voluntarily surrendering his law license pending investigation of ethical violations. He composed a second message to Edwin Blackwell, confessing his affair and offering his cooperation with any matters regarding Karen's estate. The next morning, he loaded his remaining possessions into his car and drove toward Columbia, a smaller city where no one knew his name or his shame. He'd accepted a position as a paralegal in a storefront legal aid office, a humbling step down that felt nonetheless like his first honest choice in years. As Charleston spires receded in his rearview mirror, Tyler's hand went to his jacket pocket, where Karen's final letter now resided. Her forgiveness hadn't erased his guilt, but it had offered something he'd never expected to find again, the possibility of redemption. In the passenger seat lay a small box of items he couldn't bear to leave behind. Photographs, Karen's favorite book of poetry, and a curious object he'd discovered at the very back of her bedside drawer while packing. It was a tiny velvet pouch containing what appeared to be a thumb drive, labeled in Karen's handwriting, "Insurance, open only if necessary." Tyler eyed it curiously, but kept driving. Whatever secrets it contained could wait. For now, he had a long journey ahead, not just to Columbia, but toward becoming someone worthy of the second chance he'd been given, someone Karen might have been proud of, after all. Columbia's legal aid clinic occupied the first floor of a weathered brick building on Assembly Street. Unlike the gleaming law offices of Tyler's past, this space embraced its humility. Mismatched furniture, buzzing fluorescent lights, and walls lined with dog-eared legal reference books too outdated to sell, but too useful to discard. Tyler's desk sat in the corner, a battered oak relic that wobbled unless propped with a folded cardboard under one leg. His law degree remained in a storage unit back in Charleston, a reminder of heights achieved and squandered. Here he was simply Mr. Johnson, the paralegal who helped clients navigate eviction notices and prepare paperwork for disability claims. At 40, Tyler looked older than his years. His designer suits had given way to department store button-downs and machine-washable slacks. The confident swagger had disappeared, replaced by a quieter demeanor that clients often mistook for natural modesty rather than hard-earned humility. "Mr. Johnson," the receptionist poked her head around his cubicle partition, "there's a woman here to see you. Says she doesn't have an appointment, but it's important." Tyler glanced at his cluttered desk. "Did she mention what it's regarding?" "Something about Charleston," the receptionist whispered, as though the city name might itself be scandalous. Everyone at the clinic knew Tyler had come from there, but respected his silence about his past. Tyler's pulse quickened. "Send her back," He expected Jessica, perhaps with new accusations or demands. Instead, Carmen Rodriguez appeared, her small frame dignified in a simple navy dress, her silver-streaked hair pulled into a neat bun. "Mrs. Rodriguez," Tyler managed, rising awkwardly. "This is, unexpected." Carmen surveyed his modest workspace without comment. "May we speak privately?" Tyler led her to a small conference room used for client consultations. Through the window, Colombia's modest skyline bore little resemblance to Charleston's historic beauty. "Why are you here?" Tyler asked, not unkindly, but with wariness. Carmen placed her handbag on the table with deliberate care. "To return something that belongs to you." She withdrew a small velvet pouch, identical to the one Tyler had found in Karen's drawer. "Another thumb drive?" Tyler asked. Carmen nodded. "The companion to the one you already have." Tyler's eyes narrowed. "How do you know about that?" "Because I gave both to Karen," Carmen replied calmly. "One for her protection, one for evidence." Tyler sank into a chair. "Evidence of what?" "Of everything." Carmen's dark eyes held his steadily. "Your affair with Jessica, your plans for Karen's fortune, the property schemes in Savannah." Understanding dawned slowly. "You were gathering information all along." Carmen nodded once. "For nearly 2 years." "But why?" Tyler asked. "Why not just tell Karen immediately?" Carmen folded her hands on the table. "Because telling her about a simple affair would have caused pain but might not have protected her. I needed to understand the full scope of your intentions." A memory surfaced. Carmen cleaning the Bennett estate occasionally, always seemingly in the background, easily overlooked like most domestic staff. "The day I met Jessica," Tyler said slowly, "at that property dispute, that wasn't coincidence, was it? My daughter had ambitions beyond her moral compass," Carmen acknowledged, sadness deepening the lines around her eyes. "I watched her target wealthy men before. When she mentioned meeting a promising attorney married to a Bennett, I recognized the pattern." "So you, what, encouraged it? Spied on us?" "I observed," Carmen corrected. "I placed a tracking app on Jessica's phone. I volunteered for extra shifts at houses where you might appear. I learned about your financial difficulties, your gambling debts, your desperation to access Karen's family money." Tyler flinched at the clinical assessment of his motives. "And then, you went to Karen." "Not immediately," Carmen said. "First I went to Reverend Thompson. I needed guidance on the moral complexities. Together we approached Karen when the evidence became irrefutable." Tyler's mind raced. "The photos, the anonymous letter, were my doing," Carmen confirmed. "Karen deserved to know the truth, but she died before she could confront me," Tyler said quietly. Pain flickered across Carmen's face. "Her death was a tragedy I never anticipated. The driver who hit her had no connection to any of this, just a senseless accident." Silence fell between them, heavy with shared guilt and grief. "After she died," Tyler finally asked, "who sent the ethics complaints to the Bar Association? Who contacted Jessica's clients?" Carmen's expression hardened. "I did." "Why?" "Karen was gone. Your revenge was unnecessary." "Not revenge," Carmen corrected sharply. "Justice. You and Jessica conspired to steal from a good woman. The accident didn't absolve that sin." Tyler stared at his hands. "So you systematically destroyed what remained of my life, and Jessica's too, I assume." "I created consequences," Carmen replied evenly, "something both of you had avoided your entire lives." Tyler looked up. "And now? Why come here after all this time?" Carmen pushed the velvet pouch toward him. "Because punishment without purpose is just cruelty. The thumb drive contains the same evidence as the other, but also recordings of conversations where you expressed genuine affection for Karen. Moments of kindness and regret. Why would you preserve those?" "Because redemption requires both justice and mercy," Carmen said simply. "Reverend Thompson believes you are genuinely changing. I came to see for myself." Tyler swallowed hard. "And your verdict?" Carmen studied him thoughtfully. "You're doing penance, not just suffering punishment. There's a difference." She stood gathering her purse. "The information on those drives will never be made public as long as you continue on this path." "And Jessica?" Tyler asked. "What became of her?" A flicker of maternal pain crossed Carmen's face. "She lost her real estate license after certain irregularities came to light. She works as a restaurant hostess now. We speak occasionally. Her journey is harder. She hasn't yet accepted responsibility as you have." At the door, Carmen paused. "The children's home is thriving, by the way. 27 children have found shelter there this year. Karen's legacy grows." After she left, Tyler sat motionless, the velvet pouch heavy in his palm. He'd spent a year believing his downfall was bad luck or karma. The revelation that it had been meticulously orchestrated by a cleaning lady he'd barely noticed felt both humiliating and strangely appropriate. 3 days later, Reverend Thompson walked slowly through the memorial garden where Karen and her unborn son rested. Autumn painted the Charleston trees in brilliant orange and gold, a carpet of leaves crunching beneath his feet. "I did as you asked," he said softly to Carmen, who stood beside Karen's headstone. "I visited the legal aid clinic yesterday, spoke with Tyler's supervisor." "And?" Carmen asked. "He's changed," Thompson acknowledged. "Working diligently, living modestly, taking on the most difficult cases without complaint." Carmen nodded, satisfied. "Then our work is complete." Thompson hesitated. "Was it ever our place to orchestrate such justice? We merely created transparency," Carmen replied. "Their own choices did the rest." Together they stood in silence, watching golden leaves spiral down from ancient oaks. "Some betrayals carry consequences that echo far beyond the grave," Thompson finally said. "But I've come to believe true character is revealed not in our moments of happiness, but in how we honor those who loved us even after they're gone." Carmen laid a small bouquet of white roses on the grave. Karen saw goodness where it barely existed. Her faith changed him more profoundly than our intervention ever could. As they walked back toward the church, the setting sun painted Charleston's spires in amber light. In Columbia, Tyler Johnson helped a young mother complete paperwork to avoid eviction. In a downtown Charleston restaurant, Jessica Rodriguez seated dining patrons with mechanical efficiency, her eyes occasionally drifting toward the harbor where yachts she once aspired to own still gleamed in the fading light. And in the quiet churchyard, Karen's legacy continued to grow, not just in the children's home bearing her name, but in the ripples of consequence and redemption that flowed from her brief, gentle life and the betrayal that had failed to diminish it. In the end, her love had proven more powerful than deception, more lasting than betrayal, more transformative than even she could have imagined. If this story touched your heart, and you want to keep following inspiring and moving stories, be sure to check out our upcoming videos, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications to stay updated on new content that can brighten your journey and provide valuable insights. Join us and keep exploring stories that truly matter. I'm sure the next video that pops up on your screen will touch you as well, so click on it now and we'll see you there.